remember the exact tone she used. Soft, calm, almost sweet. "What a lovely house," my daughter-in-law said, her fingers gliding across my granite kitchen island like she was testing the polish on a new car. "My parents and sister will move in too." She said it the same way someone might say, "We should plant roses in the spring." Like it was obvious, like it was already decided. I didn't laugh. I didn't blink. I just stared at her. Because this house, this 4,200 square foot colonial with the wraparound porch and the blue hydrangeas I planted with my own hands, was mine, bought after 27 years of double shifts, overtime holidays, and one very ugly divorce that left me with less than dignity and more debt than I care to admit. And she was standing in my kitchen, sipping sparkling water from my crystal, calmly planning to move her entire family into it. I smiled. "Oh," I said lightly, "is that so?" She nodded, pushing her dark hair behind her shoulder. "It makes sense. The house is big, we're family now, and Mom and Dad are struggling with rent. You wouldn't want them in that neighborhood forever." Her eyes searched my face like she was expecting applause. Behind her, my son, Ethan, stood awkwardly near the pantry. 32 years old, 6 feet tall, still looking like a boy caught sneaking cookies before dinner. "Mom," he said quietly, "it's just an idea." An idea. I looked at him. Really looked at him. This was the boy I raised alone after his father walked out when he was 5. The boy who used to sleep beside me during thunderstorms. The boy whose college tuition I paid in full so he wouldn't have to take out loans. And now he couldn't even look me in the eye. I folded my hands on the counter. An idea usually gets discussed before it's announced. Silence. My daughter-in-law, Vanessa, didn't flinch. She smiled. "Well," she said gently, "I figured it wouldn't be a problem. You're alone now, and this place is so spacious." Alone. That word landed like a brick to the chest. Yes, I was alone, divorced at 49, my dating life a joke, my evenings quiet, except for the hum of the dishwasher and the occasional true crime documentary. But alone did not mean available. Alone did not mean free real estate. I inhaled slowly. "Vanessa, your parents have their own home." "Not really," she replied smoothly. "They rent, and my sister's going through a separation. She needs stability." I tilted my head. "And that stability is my guest rooms?" Ethan finally stepped forward. "Mom, it wouldn't be forever." There it was, the phrase people use before something becomes permanent. I walked to the window, staring out at the backyard. The oak tree I refused to cut down, the patio furniture I saved up for, the small fountain that I installed because I liked the sound of water at night. Every square inch of this place carried a memory of sacrifice. I turned back around. "How many people are we talking about?" I asked. Vanessa didn't hesitate. "My mom, my dad, my sister, and her little boy, of course." Of course. 5 adults and a child. In my house, without a conversation beforehand, without even asking. I felt something shift inside me then. Not anger, not yet. Something colder. "When were you planning on this happening?" I asked. She glanced at Ethan. "Soon. Their lease ends in 3 weeks." 3 weeks. So this had been planned, discussed, decided, and I was the last to know. I laughed then. A soft, controlled sound. "You two have been very busy." Vanessa's smile thinned just a fraction. "We didn't think you'd object." That sentence told me everything. They didn't think I'd object, because in her mind, I was the generous mother, the accommodating one, the woman who paid for their honeymoon when Ethan's job bonus fell through, the woman who co-signed their first car loan, the woman who always said yes. Ethan cleared his throat. "Mom, it's temporary, and they can help around here. Dad's good with maintenance." "I manage maintenance just fine." "It's about family, supporting each other." Family. I walked back to the island and leaned against it. You mean the same family that didn't speak to you for 6 months when you married Ethan because you thought he didn't earn enough? Her jaw tightened. That was different. Was it? Ethan sighed. Mom, can we not dig up old stuff? Old stuff. It wasn't old to me. I remembered every passive-aggressive comment Vanessa's mother made at the wedding, every sideways glance at my dress, every remark about how simple the ceremony was. And now they needed my house. I studied Vanessa's face. She wasn't nervous. She wasn't embarrassed. She was confident, like she already owned the place. You know, I said slowly, when I bought this house, I did it because I wanted peace. Vanessa tilted her head. You'll still have peace. With 6 extra people? It's temporary. How temporary is it? She hesitated. That was the first crack. Well, until they get back on their feet. I nodded slowly. And how long did that take the last time? Silence, because her parents had temporarily lived with their aunt for 2 years. I walked past her, toward the hallway. I need some air. Outside, the late afternoon sun felt too bright. My heart was pounding, but my face remained calm. I've learned that over the years. Never let them see you react too soon. I heard the sliding door open behind me. Vanessa's voice floated out, I hope you're not overthinking this. Overthinking? I turned around slowly. My home isn't something I overthink, I answered evenly. She stepped onto the patio, heels clicking against the stone. We're just trying to create a supportive environment. For who? For everyone. I looked at her carefully. No, I said quietly. You're trying to solve your parents' financial problems with my square footage. Her eyes flashed then. It's not like you need all this space. There it was, the entitlement. The assumption that because I was one woman in a large house, my ownership was negotiable. I smiled again, the same calm smile she had given me in the kitchen. You're right, I said softly. She blinked. You're absolutely right. For a moment, she looked victorious, and that's when I decided. I wasn't going to scream, I wasn't going to argue, I was going to let her think she'd won, because I had something she didn't know about. Something Ethan didn't know either. I folded my hands gently and looked back at the house. If your parents and sister want to move in, then we should probably go over the paperwork. Paperwork, she repeated. Yes, I said lightly. Contracts, rental agreements, liability clauses. Her smile faded. This is family. Exactly. She stared at me, confusion flickering in her eyes for the first time. I'll draw something up, I continued. Everyone should understand their financial responsibilities. Utilities will increase, property taxes are due in September, insurance adjustments, and, of course, monthly rent. Rent, she said sharply. I held her gaze. You didn't think 5 adults would live here for free. Her face hardened. We're not tenants. No, I agreed. You'd be extended stay guests, which is even more expensive. The silence between us thickened. Inside, I could see Ethan watching through the glass door. Vanessa's voice dropped, losing its honeyed tone. That's not what we discussed. You discussed it, I corrected gently. You informed me. She stepped closer. Ethan is your son. Yes. And I'm your family now. Yes. Then why are you treating us like strangers? I leaned in slightly, lowering my voice to match hers. Because strangers ask before they move in. Her jaw tightened. For a second, I saw something else there. Not anger, calculation. She stepped back, smoothing her blouse. You think you're being dramatic, she said coolly. But fine, draw up your little contracts. Little. I smiled. I will. She walked back inside without another word. Ethan lingered behind. Mom, did it have to go that way? Yes. He ran his hair through his hair. They're in a tough spot. And I'm not? I asked softly. You're stable. Stable. That word again. Like stability meant I owed the unstable. I studied my son's face. Ethan, did you know she was going to phrase it that way? He hesitated, and that hesitation was louder than any answer. I didn't think she meant it to sound demanding, but it did. He looked down. "Mom, I just don't want conflict." I nodded slowly. "I don't either." But conflict had already moved in, and something told me this wasn't just about her parents needing a place to stay. This was about control, about testing boundaries, about seeing how far they could stretch me. I walked back inside, calm as ever. "Dinner?" I asked pleasantly. Vanessa looked at me carefully. "Yes," she said. We sat at the table like nothing had happened, but beneath the surface something had shifted, and I could feel it. The beginning of a war no one had officially declared yet.
I barely tasted the food that night. I had made lemon herb chicken, roasted asparagus, mashed potatoes, the kind of dinner I used to cook when Ethan was in high school, and I was trying to convince both of us that everything was normal after his father left. Vanessa complimented the seasoning. "Perfectly tender," she said, smiling across the table. I smiled back. "Thank you." Ethan kept clearing his throat like he wanted to say something but couldn't quite find the courage. The chandelier above us cast this warm golden glow over the dining room, making everything look peaceful, civilized. But under that table, tension pulsed like a live wire. Vanessa set her fork down carefully. "So, about the contracts." Straight to business. I dabbed my lips with a napkin. "Yes?" She said, "I assume you were joking." I wasn't. Her eyes flickered toward Ethan. "We're family." "And family respects structure," I replied calmly, "especially when it comes to shared property." She leaned back in her chair. "Shared?" I held her gaze. "If 6 additional people live here, it becomes shared space." "It's Ethan's home too," she said evenly. There it was again. The shift. Not my house. Ethan's home. I turned to my son. "Is that how you see it?" He looked trapped. "Mom, I grew up here." "In the townhouse," I corrected gently. "This house I bought 5 years ago, after you moved out." Silence. Vanessa's fingers tapped lightly on the table. "You've always said this would eventually be Ethan's." "Eventually." I nodded slowly. "Eventually doesn't mean today." She tilted her head. "You can't take it with you." The air changed. That sentence didn't just imply inheritance, it implied anticipation. I set my fork down very carefully. "You're right," I said softly. "I can't take it with me." Ethan's eyes widened slightly. He knows that tone. He's heard it maybe twice in his life. Once when I found out his father had emptied our joint account. Once when I discovered Ethan had been skipping college classes his sophomore year. It's the tone I use when I'm not emotional anymore. Vanessa smiled faintly, mistaking my calm for surrender. "Exactly," she said. "So why not let this house serve the whole family now?" I studied her face. She believed what she was saying, or at least she believed she deserved it. "Let me ask you something," I said quietly. "If your parents suddenly became wealthy tomorrow, would they offer me their home?" She didn't answer. "Would they?" I repeated. "That's different." "How?" She pressed her lips together. Ethan exhaled slowly. "Mom, can we not turn this into a debate?" "It already is one," I replied. The rest of dinner moved stiffly after that. Dishes clinked, chairs scraped. Vanessa excused herself early, claiming she had a headache. Ethan lingered in the kitchen while I rinsed plates. "You're making this harder than it needs to be," he said gently. I didn't look at him. "Am I?" "Just need help." "So they move into an apartment." "They can't afford one right now." I turned off the faucet and faced him. "Do you know how many times I couldn't afford something?" He sighed. "That's not the same." "Why not?" "Because you're strong." I stared at him. "Do you think strength just happens?" I asked softly. "Do you think it grows in comfortable soil?" He didn't answer. I dried my hands slowly. "Ethan, if they move in without boundaries, this house won't feel like mine anymore. It'll still be yours." "Will it?" He hesitated. That hesitation, again. I stepped closer. "Tell me honestly, if your father-in-law decides he doesn't like how I arrange the living room, who's expected to adjust?" He swallowed. "If your sister-in-law's child cries at 2 a.m., who's supposed to tolerate it? It's temporary." "You keep saying that." He ran both hands through his hair now. "Why are you fighting this so hard?" "Because I see something you don't. Because I've lived long enough to recognize entitlement disguised as need. Because I know what happens when you give an inch to someone who's already measuring the yard." But I didn't say any of that. Instead, I said, "Because I've already made plans." He frowned. "What plans?" I picked up the dish towel and folded it neatly. "You'll see." His eyes sharpened. "What does that mean?" "It means," I said calmly, "that I'm not as unprepared as you think." He studied me, searching for clues. And for a brief moment I saw doubt flicker across his face, not about me, but about Vanessa. "Did she push this?" I asked quietly. He didn't answer directly. "She worries about her family." "More than she worries about ours?" He stiffened. "That's not fair." "Isn't it?" Silence stretched between us again. Finally, he muttered, "I need some air," and stepped outside. I watched him through the window as he stood in the dark yard, staring at nothing. My son, still torn between loyalty and marriage, still hoping I would make it easy. I went upstairs to my bedroom and locked the door. Then I opened my nightstand drawer and pulled out the folder. Thick, cream-colored, official. The document inside had been signed, notarized, and filed 3 months ago. I ran my fingers over the embossed seal. When I bought this house, I bought it solely in my name. After the divorce, I promised myself I would never again entangle my security with anyone else's assumptions. But 3 months ago, after a particular conversation with Vanessa's mother at Thanksgiving, one where she casually asked, "So when will you sign it over to Ethan?" I decided to make a change. Not out of spite, out of clarity. I sat on the edge of my bed and let the memory replay. Vanessa's mother sipping wine, her father nodding approvingly at the square footage, Vanessa laughing softly when someone joked that Ethan chose well. Chosen well, like my son had chosen into something superior. That night, I scheduled an appointment with my attorney. And now, here I was. I closed the folder gently and slid it back into the drawer. Downstairs, I heard the sliding door open again. Muffled voices. Low. Urgent. I moved to the top of the staircase quietly. Vanessa's voice carried upward. "She's bluffing," she whispered. "I don't think she is," Ethan replied. "She wouldn't risk losing you." My breath stilled. Ethan didn't respond immediately. "That's not what this is," he finally said. "She's trying to control the situation," Vanessa insisted. "If we let her dictate terms now, she'll always hold this house over us." The house. Over us. I gripped the railing. Ethan's voice lowered. "It is her house. For now." For now. The words echoed through me like a gunshot. For now. I stepped back into the shadows before they could see me. For now. So that's how she saw it. Not as my lifelong asset, not as my hard-earned sanctuary, but as a waiting inheritance, a delayed transfer. I went back into my bedroom slowly and shut the door. For now. I sat on the bed, staring at the wall, and something inside me settled into absolute certainty. This wasn't about temporary shelter. This was about positioning, about accelerating the timeline, about quietly maneuvering me out of relevance. Vanessa wasn't impatient. She was strategic, and she believed one thing with full confidence, that eventually this house would be hers through Ethan, and that belief had made her bold. Too bold. I walked to the mirror and studied my reflection. 54 years old. Not fragile, not confused, not lonely in the way she assumed. Alone, yes, but alone by choice. I picked up my phone and scrolled to a contact I hadn't called in years. My attorney. My thumb hovered over the screen. Then I pressed dial. It rang twice. "Good evening," he answered smoothly. "It's me," I said. A pause. Recognition. "Ah, I was wondering when you'd call." I smiled faintly. "So was I." "Trouble?" he asked. "Not yet, but it's approaching." "And the arrangement?" "I think it's time to prepare the next step." Silence on the line. Then a measured response. "Are you certain?" I looked around my bedroom. At the crown molding I chose. At the artwork I bought on my own credit. At the quiet that I still owned, for now. "Yes," I said calmly. "I'm certain." Downstairs, I heard Vanessa laugh softly at something Ethan said. Light, relaxed, confident. She thought she had time. She thought she had leverage. She thought I would cave. I ended the call and placed the phone on my nightstand. 3 weeks, she had said. 3 weeks until her parents' lease ended. 3 weeks until moving trucks would likely show up in my driveway without hesitation. I lay back on the bed staring at the ceiling. 3 weeks was plenty of time. Plenty of time to shift the ground beneath her feet. Plenty of time to make for now mean something entirely different. And as I closed my eyes, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Not anger, not fear, anticipation. Because if Vanessa believed she was the only one capable of quiet strategy, she was about to learn exactly who she was dealing with. And she had no idea what was already in motion.
The next morning, I woke up before sunrise. The house was quiet, still mine. The hardwood floors cool under my feet as I walked into the kitchen and started the coffee maker. That soft, gurgling sound felt almost sacred. 3 weeks. That's what Vanessa had given me. 3 weeks until my driveway would supposedly fill with her parents' furniture and her sister's boxes and a child's toys scattered across my living room. 3 weeks until temporary became permanent. But what she didn't know, what Ethan didn't know, was that the timeline she thought she controlled had already expired. I stood at the window with my mug and watched the sky turn pale pink over the backyard. That oak tree had stood there longer than my marriage, longer than Ethan's childhood. It didn't bend because someone wanted it to, and neither would I. By mid-morning, Vanessa came downstairs in silk pajamas, scrolling through her phone. "Morning," she said lightly. "Good morning." She poured herself coffee like she'd done it 100 times, like this was already her kitchen. "So," she said casually, "I told my parents they can start packing. I didn't give them an exact date yet." I took a slow sip. "That was quick." "Well," she shrugged, "no point delaying the inevitable." I almost smiled at that. The inevitable. "Actually," I said calmly, "there's something you and Ethan should know." She paused, mug halfway to her lips. About the house." Her eyes sharpened. "What about it?" I didn't answer immediately. I let the silence stretch just enough to make her uncomfortable. "Call Ethan down," I said. She studied my face like she was trying to read a bluff, but I wasn't bluffing. 5 minutes later, Ethan came downstairs, looking slightly anxious. "What's going on?" he asked. I gestured for them to sit at the dining table. They did. I remained standing. I've spent the last 5 years building stability. After my divorce, I promised myself I would never be financially vulnerable again. Ethan nodded slowly. Vanessa crossed her arms. 3 months ago, I continued, I met with my attorney. Her eyebrows twitched. "Why?" Ethan asked. "Because of a conversation at Thanksgiving," I replied, looking directly at Vanessa. "When your mother asked me when I planned to sign it over." Vanessa's jaw tightened. "She didn't mean—" "She did," I said gently, and I listened. The room went very still. "I made a decision," I continued. "Not emotional, not reactive, practical." Ethan leaned forward. "Mom, what did you do?" I walked to the hallway cabinet, retrieved the folder, and placed it on the table. Vanessa's eyes dropped to the seal. "This property," I said calmly, "is no longer positioned the way you think it is." Ethan looked confused. "What does that mean?" "It means," I said softly, "that this house is now part of an irrevocable living trust." Silence. Vanessa blinked. "A what?" "An irrevocable trust," I repeated. "Filed, locked, legally binding." Ethan's face paled slightly. "Why?" "Because I wanted control over what happens to it, now and after I'm gone." Vanessa's voice hardened. "So what does that mean for us?" "It means," I said steadily, "this house cannot be transferred, inherited early, borrowed against, or claimed through marriage." Ethan looked stunned. "You didn't tell me." "I didn't need to." Vanessa leaned forward. "Who's the beneficiary?" I held her gaze. "Not you." Her composure cracked for the first time. "You're punishing us." "No," I said calmly. "I'm protecting myself."
Ethan looked between us. "Mom, am I in it?" "Yes," I said. "Eventually. Under conditions." "Conditions?" Vanessa snapped. "Yes." She stood up abruptly. "This is insane." "No," I said softly. "What's insane is assuming you can move 6 people into someone's home without asking." Her cheeks flushed. "We are your family." And family doesn't calculate someone's death as a housing strategy. That landed hard. Ethan inhaled sharply. "Vanessa," she turned on him. "You knew about this?" "No," he said quietly. She laughed once, sharp and humorless. "So she just decided our future without us?" I met her eyes evenly. "You decided my present without me." Silence swallowed the room. Then I delivered the final piece. "I've also listed the house." Both of them froze. "Listed?" Ethan whispered. "Yes," I said calmly. "It goes on the market next week." Vanessa stared at me like I'd slapped her. "You can't be serious." "I am." Ethan's voice shook slightly. "Why would you do that?" "Because I refuse to live in a battlefield, and I refuse to be pressured in my own home." Vanessa shook her head. "This is manipulation." "No," I said evenly. "This is choice." The truth was, I had been considering downsizing for months. A quieter place, maybe near the water, something simpler. But their assumption had accelerated my decision. Vanessa's voice dropped low. "Where will we go?" I tilted my head. "I believe your parents' lease ends in 3 weeks." Her face drained of color. "You're forcing us out." "I'm selling my property," I corrected. Ethan stood up slowly. "Mom, you'd sell your home just to make a point?" I looked at him. "I'd sell my home to protect my peace." The weight of that hung heavy. Vanessa grabbed her phone. "I need to call my mother." "Please do," I said gently. She walked out onto the patio, voice already rising. Ethan stayed behind. He looked lost. "I didn't think it would go this far," he admitted quietly. "It didn't have to." He swallowed. "You're serious about selling?" "Yes." He looked around the room like he was seeing it for the first time. The chandelier, the hardwood floors, the memories he wasn't even part of. "I thought someday this would be ours." I stepped closer. "Someday is not entitlement. It's earned trust." His eyes filled just slightly. "I never wanted to push you out." "But you were willing to let her try." He didn't deny it. Outside, Vanessa's voice grew sharper, agitated. I caught fragments. "She put it in a trust. She's selling. No, she won't change her mind." I felt strangely calm, not triumphant, just steady. Vanessa stormed back inside 20 minutes later. "This is unbelievable. My parents already started packing." "Then they should pause," I replied. She stared at me with something that wasn't just anger now. It was uncertainty. "You're really willing to walk away from this house?" she asked quietly. "Yes." "And from us?" I held her gaze. "I'm not walking away from anyone, but I won't be cornered." Ethan sank back into his chair. The power dynamic had shifted. Completely. Vanessa had believed she was negotiating from inevitability, but I had removed the board entirely. The house was no longer leverage, it was liquid, movable, untouchable. The next week was tense. A real estate sign went up on the lawn. Showings were scheduled. Vanessa barely spoke to me. Ethan avoided eye contact. Boxes that were supposed to come in never did. And one evening, as I sat alone in the living room, Vanessa finally broke. She stood in front of me, arms wrapped around herself. "I didn't think you'd actually do it," she admitted quietly. "I know." Her voice trembled slightly. "I just wanted security." "So did I." She looked around the room, eyes softer now. "What if we find another solution?" I didn't answer immediately, because now the conversation was different. Not entitled, not assumed, negotiated. And that was the point. 2 days later, an offer came in. Strong, clean, above asking. Ethan stared at the paperwork like it was rewriting his childhood. Vanessa was silent. I signed, calm as ever.
And as I handed the pen back to my agent, I felt lighter than I had in years. Vanessa thought the house was the prize, but peace was. On closing day, I walked through every room one last time, not with sadness, with clarity. When I stepped outside, the oak tree swayed gently in the wind, steady, unmoved. Ethan hugged me longer than usual. Vanessa stood a few feet away, thoughtful. "You underestimated me," she said quietly. "Yes," I replied. The moving truck for my new place arrived the next morning. Smaller home, gated community, no spare rooms for temporary arrangements. Intentional. As I drove away from the colonial with the wraparound porch, I didn't look back, because this was never about walls. It was about boundaries, and I had finally drawn mine in permanent ink. If you've ever had someone mistake your kindness for weakness, you already understand this story. If this hit home for you, if you've ever had to protect your peace the hard way, make sure you like this video, share it with someone who needs the reminder, and subscribe to the channel. Because sometimes the calmest person in the room is the one you should never underestimate. And trust me, this was not the last move I made.